Welcome back, gamers, to another video. This time we'll be going over the critically acclaimed Black Myth Wukong. You've probably seen this game everywhere by now. There's this monkey man with a stick. It's apparently based on a Chinese novel. What is going on here? People have been raving about this game, but does it actually live up to the hype? And more importantly, is this game worth picking up? But before we get into it, if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. Also, spoiler warning, there's a big sequence at the beginning of the game that I'll be talking about, and I'll be showing footage up to chapter 3. So if you don't want to be spoiled by the intro sequence, and you don't want to see any bosses or anything up to chapter 3, then I recommend coming back to this video after you get up to that point. But with that out of the way, let's get into this ancient Chinese tale about a monkey with a big ol' stick. Black Myth Wukong is based on the ancient Chinese novel Journey to the West, a story that follows the Monkey King, Sun Wukong. I personally do not know much about Journey to the West, but I am a huge Dragon Ball fan, which was heavily inspired by this classic. So of course I went into Black Myth Wukong with a ton of excitement. I wanted to know more about this world and characters, even if it wasn't a direct adaptation of Journey to the West. I was stoked to see what this narrative was going to be. What am I looking at? What is going on here? Okay, so the story of Black Myth Wukong is unfortunately not what I was hoping for. While this world and characters are based on Journey to the West, the story itself seems to be different. The story essentially acts as a backdrop for the game, and not much else. The characters you meet are fine, I guess, but they really don't leave a huge impact. Although I will say that Zhu is pretty great. I did enjoy spending time with him. He's just this fun little pig guy. He's probably the best character in the game. The most disappointing character is unfortunately the nameless monkey that you play as, only referred to as the Destined One, which, okay, I guess, but I was really hoping to play as the Monkey King himself for the entire game, but instead the story of Black Myth Wukong revolves around this nameless protag monkey with his quest involving the retrieval of 6 relics of Sun Wukong. The protagonist himself is just not a character. He is completely silent with no personality, and it's such a shame because at the beginning of the game when you play as Sun Wukong, he had such a big personality, but this monkey just isn't really a character. For a video game plot, it's fine, it works, but I had my expectations too high for the actual narrative. And maybe that's my fault for having that high expectation on the story, but I was really looking forward to learning more about this world. But the game doesn't really do a good job at introducing its world to newcomers. I'm sure that you can tell that Black Myth Wukong is a looker. Character and enemy animations are fantastic, and the cool effects are a nice touch. I've been playing on the PlayStation 5 on the performance mode, so the game can look even better on PC. I also recommend turning down the camera blur. It makes playing the game a lot smoother. I also want to touch on the enemy designs because some of these bosses could straight up be final bosses in other games with how grand and epic they look. While you will occasionally get similar looking bosses, most of them are completely unique. The environments have a nice visual variety, even in the same chapter, which is really nice. Overall, there's just something unique about this game. Just looking at it, you can tell that this game has been made with so much love and care. The gameplay of Black Myth Wukong is essentially an action-adventure game with an emphasis on boss fights. There are Souls-like elements like checkpoints where you rest and upgrade your stuff, and the game's hard difficulty is one of its defining features. Thankfully, it's not as hard as something like Dark Souls, but it's no slouch either. The game has been continuously kicking my butt over and over again, and while it can be frustrating with certain boss fights, the game allows you to level up and upgrade abilities and different skill trees. You can also craft armor and weapons, and even potions to further increase your chances against some of these behemoths. And I mean it, some of these fights are behemoths. Boss fights range from smaller mini-bosses to absolute colossal giants. These boss fights are the main attractions of Black Myth Wukong, which could be a turnoff for some people, but for me, man, these fights are a treat. The rush you get when you have been struggling against a really tough one, and then finally on the 10th or 20th try, you finally beat him, and it's so satisfying. There are even optional and secret bosses for you to discover. This game is jam-packed with content. You will easily get your money's worth in content alone. There are 6 chapters in Black Myth: Wukong. Each chapter has its own region for you to explore. While this game is mostly linear for the most part, there are both branching paths and open-ish areas for you to explore. Exploration can be a blast. Discovering hidden secrets and taking on hidden bosses is where the game shines. But exploration can also come with its own downsides. First off, there is no map in the entire game. Now, to be fair, I don't think every game needs a map, but in this game, it would have been really helpful. A lot of these regions have different paths that will take you all over the place, and sometimes it's hard to know where you have been and where you have not been. Also, these areas are filled with invisible walls. Now, again, normally invisible walls don't really bother me unless they are overused, and unfortunately Black Myth: Wukong has so many invisible walls. You have the ability to jump and traverse these different landscapes, and the game even encourages you to go off the beaten path in order to find secrets, but I have spent a ton of time jumping up against these invisible walls thinking I can access that area. Overall, I enjoyed these different regions in the game, and while some of the exploration can be annoying, I did find myself wanting to explore every nook and cranny in this game because the rewards for doing so are so worth it. The combat in Black Myth: Wukong is as fun as it looks. Normally in games like this, you have a sword to slice down your foes, but in this game, your main weapon is your trusty staff. With it, you are able to learn up to 3 stances, each with their own heavy attacks and combos. I do wish that these stances would change up the standard combos that you do. You'll be seeing this particular combo a ton, which is fine, but I would have loved to see more variety with the standard combos that you do. Thankfully, you have more to your arsenal than just a big stick. You are also equipped with different spells that can help you in combat. You can freeze enemies in time, vanish into mist, and even use Shadow Clone Jutsu. You will also gain the ability to use certain enemies' abilities by using their spirits. I love that you can collect these spirits like they are Pokemon. It's just so fun to collect them and see which one fits your playstyle. And like Pokemon, I'll collect as much as I can and then only use like 1 or 2 of them. That's probably the biggest negative I have with spirits. I only like a couple of them, but I'm sure everyone has their favorites. Also, the button placement for spirits is kind of weird. Like sometimes when you push the 2 triggers, they don't work sometimes, so that can be a little annoying, but other than that, it's really fun to use these spirits. Finally, we have one of my favorite abilities in the game, the transformation ability. You can turn into specific bosses temporarily for a short period of time. This has single-handedly saved my life countless times. You may only see one transformation in this video, but don't worry, there are other transformations that you can do. Of course, at the beginning of the game, you'll start out super weak with 0 abilities, but eventually you will be killing bosses left and right. Black Myth: Wukong will test your patience, but if you stick with it, you will be rewarded. Just don't do what I did and fight this specific boss too close to the outside of the arena and have him glitch out and spawn in the center with full health. Thankfully, this is the only boss that did this. Overall, the combat is great, if not a bit repetitive, but even so, you have many tools in your arsenal for combat. The music of Black Myth: Wukong is excellent. The music in the boss fights are particularly good. It's mostly composed in this orchestral style, with some traditional Chinese instruments, and you can even hear some vocals to some tracks that take the music from a 10 to an 11. I'm so glad that I played Black Myth: Wukong. While it lacked in the story and characters, it made up for in combat, and specifically the boss battle spectacles. I absolutely love finding each secret area and fighting these crazy bosses in the most grandiose arenas. Take the beginning of the game for instance. You are fighting on the clouds of the celestial plane in front of giants. And that's just the beginning. So does Black Myth: Wukong really live up to the hype that you see online? Yes, it absolutely does. Is it a 10 out of 10 generational game? I don't quite think so. But this game is really great, and I do recommend anyone who likes action games like this to go pick it up. As long as you go into the game with an open mind, I think you'll like it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. God bless.